calling for all strikes to be coordinated to cause maximum impact. It does sound like we're heading towards some kind of autumn, winter of discontent. Some of you at home may have been around during the 70s. I wasn't, but I've heard what it was like. Anyway, Unison and Unite say working closely together will help them win the fight for inflation-linked pay rises. Mick Lynch, everyone's favourite Chief General Secretary, he's the General Secretary of the RMT, of course, is calling for the entire union movement to act. He's urging unions to vote yes for a wave of industrial action until the spring. That makes me tired thinking about that. Anyway, the list of who is on strike seems to be growing daily. Transport workers, including rail and bus workers, have held a series of strikes. Dock workers in Felixstowe are currently on strike. Bin men in Scotland are also on strike, and postal workers were on strike last week. And there's also a growing list of workers that are considering action. We've got the Royal College of Nursing, who are preparing to consult with their members, as is the GMB union over teachers' pay. Civil servants and communication workers are also being asked to consider taking strike action. The suggestion to coordinate strikes will be discussed at the TUC Congress next month. Is it right that strikes should be held together? Or will that damage the country even more? People are talking about broken Britain. I think coordinated strikes might well bring us even more into disaster zone. Now, you've been sending in your opinions all this show already, and we've been reading them out, so we'll come to more later in the show. Now, let's go to you first, Jeevun. Are you worried about a winter of discontent, or do you think these unions have a right to strike and that, they have a worthy cause?
The unions absolutely have a right to strike and they absolutely have a worthy cause. Think about nurses you spoke about there. Nurses saw a pay cut around £2,000 in a decade up till now. That's why nurses are visiting food banks in this country. They're facing the £1,600 in the year ahead. Let's also remember what nurses went through during this pandemic. Look, despite whatever your views are on what happened during COVID, they're on the front line. They risked their lives for this country. It's shameful that any of them are going to food banks. We're seeing this across kind of the sectors as well. BT, for example, made a profit of 500 million, have now offered their workers a pay cut of between 10 and 5%. Their CEO, by the way, got a pay increase of 30% last year as well. We're seeing this across the board. So until workers are paid more to actually be able to live and survive, absolutely unions should be going on strike and should be doing it to cause, or rather to ensure they have higher wages.
Now, Jeevun, you're an economist.
Yes.
So you know that, obviously, there's only so much money that can go around. Where do you, do you accept that if we're going to give essentially the entire public sector an inflation-busting pay rise, that money will have to come from somewhere, and it may mean, God forbid, public spending cuts elsewhere?
No, not at all. Well, first and foremost, actually spend the money. And let's be clear, these aren't inflation-busting pay increases they're asking for, right? At the moment, I think the public sector pay offer is around 5%, so actually a real-term cuts of 8%. These aren't inflation-busting. This is falling even further behind than they were before. One of the reasons why our public sector is in such crisis at the moment, one of the reasons waiting lists are so long, is because we've seen such huge pay cuts. NHS England has about 40,000 nursing vacancies, because it's quite hard to do a job and be a nurse if you can't literally put food on the table. People leave that sector. Ben is a private sector operator. He knows if you don't pay workers enough, they don't come and turn up, they will do other jobs. And so that's what we're seeing.